Wait a minute. Why do I look and sound so much better than usual? Oh my god! It's glorious! Platformers. I honestly cannot get enough of this genre. You know, if the title didn't tell you that enough. Ever since I was a small child, I loved to play games like Mario and different games of its caliber. Hell, the third video game I ever played was Super Mario World, but after playing that, my love for these types of games just rocketed upward. I started making them my primary genre and played as many as I could. And what do you know? Just a few days ago, I played my 100. So I think it's only appropriate that I pay tribute to some of my favorite games ever created. Since this is a bigger topic than I usually tackle, there are some different rules and regulations. First off is this number right here. This is the top 100, so it's going to be a lot bigger. And due to that fact, I'm going to be removing the one per franchise rule. There are multiple games in the same franchise I want to tackle. Also keep in mind that these are only my favorite. These are not the best by any means. Hell, one that's very close to the top has so many problems it's almost ridiculous. But I do love it. I also want to make something perfectly clear. I have not played every platformer in existence. Well, I mean, I have played 100 of them, but that's not even a fraction of how many there actually are. People have been making video games for over 4 decades now, and since then, quite a few games of this genre have been made. Oh, and one more thing to remember.
What? What else could you possibly want us to remember?
To have fun. Jesus.
Oh, sorry. I just can't wait.
Get out of here.
Okay. Bye.
Alright, now I think we're ready to start. Oh my god, my foot. Damn it. Don't worry about me, I'm fine. I just jumped on a bandwagon. Kickstarter. You really have made some excellent game ideas come to life. Some better than others, but that's besides the point. Even if the games themselves don't turn out too well, letting game designers, among other things, be able to make their dreams come true with the help of a community is a phenomenal idea. But there have been some really odd games in Kickstarter, some that completely and totally change everything you know or knew about a specific type of game. It's games like the Stanley Parable that just totally make you question everything and makes you feel stupid for not knowing what's going on. But then there's the direct opposite of the spectrum. The games that make you feel stupid because you do know what's going on, and yet the rules of the genre are burned so deeply into your skull that you can't help but do it. This is where Default Dan comes riding into town. Everything in Default Dan is the opposite of what you'd expect a platformer to do. If you collect the coins, you literally explode. Jumping on enemies will have you landing in death, but spikes, the things that are your enemies in pretty much every game in existence, actually bounce you up. Damn! Now my joke in Top 9 Shovel Knight Nights is completely irrelevant. The pits in this game also allow you to go up to the top of the screen. Think sort of like Kid Icarus, but flipped around. This game is a really fascinating study on the human mind when you think about it. Every gamer with good taste has played a platformer in their life, and this is an interesting way to see people's reactions when the exact opposite rules are in place. And again, maybe I'm looking too deep into this. Oh, also did I mention that it has a soundtrack composed by Brentalfloss? 'Cause it does. Well, to be more specific, the final version does. And that's actually why something this creative is so low on the list. The actual game of Default Dan is not out yet. As of now, there's actually only a free demo that details the first world, and just enough to whet your appetite. But seriously, on a more important note, Brentalfloss is composing the soundtrack! I'm sorry to make such a big deal out of a small point, but holy shit, it's gonna sound awesome! But I really don't think I've delved into the gameplay of this enough. For being a free-to-play demo, this really has some outstanding level design. There are several areas in this game that not only allow you to test your abilities with the game's gimmick, but also as a platformer gamer in general. Games like this take several months and even years at a time to make. That's why I love Default Dan so much. Well, that and the way you get to murder the cute enemies in cold blood! That's pretty fun as well. In the past, I've stated one thing and made it perfectly clear. I hate cheap difficulty. And no, I'm not talking about the I'm bad at the game and so I claim it's cheap type of thing. I'm talking about actual balls-to-the-wall Mario Party 1 levels of cheap. Trust me, I had to deal with a legion of Dark Souls fans. Praise the sun! And actually, a lot of platformers seem to fall under that category, mostly coming from the NES. Oh god, we're in some fresh hell now! The NES had numerous platformers to be treated as such, but in most cases they either had something like the Contra code implemented, or you could use the power of Game Genie to help you immensely. But then there was a little game called Ghosts and Goblins. Now, before I even start this, I do want to clarify. I do like this game. Hell, why would I put it on a list of my favorites if I didn't? But I do find that there are several moments in the game that are very unfair and not well implemented. But just wait for my giant tangent to end, and then I'll start praising it. First complaint, and this is kind of a given, this game is hard. Yeah, no shit. For a second, I also thought that Skunk smelled like pixies, too. Something that smells good. I don't know. Okay, well the fact that this game is hard is kind of obvious from the start, I still felt the need to mention it. Yeah, that should tell you something. And I have nothing against hard games, as long as it's implemented in fair increments. However, it seems that this game was created to piss you off. Every single enemy is placed in an area that is inconvenient to you and you alone. Even in the first level, the difficulty is pressed to the max. The second you start to move, you will be overwhelmed with a barrage of zombies, bats, plants, and oh my god, burn in hell! Which is kind of coincidental, considering you're from there. And of course, there's the infamous trick where you beat the game, and you have to play it all over again. Yeah, because it was so easy the first time, I'd happily play through it again, right? Right! Only thing that keeps this game from becoming too much to bear is the fact that there are unlimited continues. But when you use it, you have to start from the beginning of the level. But from this game's standards, that's rather generous! But, as I promised, there are actually many upsides to this game. Because besides the whole insane difficulty, this game is really fun! For one, while it is completely insane, the level design is actually really creative. It takes a lot of inspiration from many different types of mythology, mostly Greek in fact, and that's actually really cool to me, considering my deep love of Greek mythology. The music is also really damn good. It fits the tone of the game perfectly. Also, as much as I hate to admit it, the whole move of making you play the game again is actually pretty creative. Yeah, as creative as it is patience tried. Yet another upside to this whole thing are the bosses, as in, they're really damn good. Each one puts everything you just learned from the previous level to the test, but adds a whole new depth of challenge to it. Let's take the first level's boss as an example. All throughout the level, you have to deal with things shooting at you from all angles and making you have to constantly keep an eye out on all your surroundings. In that pattern, the boss does just that and makes things rain from the sky while shooting you from all directions, quantifiably possible. It really makes for quite a fun experience. And there are tons of things I could go into a great depth about in this game, but they'd all basically be boiling down to one fact. This game is fun. I highly recommend picking it up any way you can, besides emulation. What's that? You like emulation? Get him, Yoshi! You know what series I feel has taken a drastic drop in terms of enjoyment in my eyes? Castlevania. Yeah, remember the good old days when Castlevania detailed the chronicles of the legendary vampire hunter Simon Belmont? Well, I don't. I wasn't alive. Since I didn't play this at a young age because, you know, I was occupied with Twilight Princess, I didn't have that much nostalgia for it. In fact, the first Castlevania game I ever played was Symphony of the Night when I was 10, and I loved it. I loved the hack and slash gameplay. I loved the vampiric abilities you got to unlock as Alucard. I loved the RPG elements, and I loved how the story progressed, showing the development of all the characters. In fact, when I first played the original Castlevania, I disliked it quite a bit. I actually found the gameplay of it to be rather archaic, and found the numerous annoying design choices to be flawed and not well created. Fucking Medusa heads. Then I actually forgot about the series for years, until I played Castlevania 2. Before we even start this, I want to make something clear. I do now love Castlevania and appreciate what it did for the industry. However, I really do find Castlevania 2 to be overhated. Oh, don't get me wrong, it has so many poor design choices that it's almost ridiculous, but it's really not that bad. For one, the enemies were a lot more fun to kill than in the predecessor. This mostly comes from the fact that your whip is not super overpowered to the point of near insanity, and the creatures you're fighting against take many hits to kill. This also turns Castlevania 2 into more of an action-centered game, which is very welcome in my eyes. There's more of a hitting sensation when attacking enemies, and it gives this whole badassy vibe to Simon. I also really enjoyed the story of Castlevania. It goes that at the end of Castlevania, after Dracula was defeated, parts of his body were spread all around Transylvania so he could never be resurrected. Right before he died, however, he placed his curse on Simon. This bound Simon to collect Dracula's parts and put him back together. It's a really interesting setup, and it really does add a nice little red bow on the package that is this game, with some nice wrapping paper. For Christmas!
And speaking of Christmas, wait a minute. This game has nothing to do with Christmas. Why the hell would I bring that up?
Another really good part about Simon's quest on the bosses. Yeah, I know that I'm a sucker for bosses, but I really can't help it in this case. Well, or any case for specification. One of my favorite things about these bosses are the fact that they're entirely optional. You don't actually have to fight them. If you want, you can run right past them and just finish the castle. However, if you actually put in the effort, they reward you with little things that make the whole experience easier. Another great thing are the RPG elements. Yeah, well, they may not be as prominent as they were in Symphony of the Night. There are several RPG tropes all throughout this game. For instance, the hearts, which used to be used as ammo, is now serving its place as currency. This adds a whole new layer of depth when collecting hearts. You want to get them instead of being required to get them. This game is also much more forgiving than the first, since every time you die, you get respawned in the exact area.
But like any game, there are several downsides.
There are things like the cryptic hints that don't really tell you anything, the fact that the final castle, yes, Dracula's castle has no enemies, or that after a while the gameplay can get so boring it's almost mind-numbing. But honestly, I can look past these things, as they're mostly just minor annoyances, and over time have been blown way out of proportion. Does this game have flaws that sometimes totally break the flow of the game? Absolutely. But is this game fun? That's a resounding yes. And I think it's worth a few annoyances just to get the chance to play through it. I really wish I got to talk about Sonic more. The fact that the only time I've ever gotten to speak about it was in a video while dissing one of the lesser games disgusts me. Sure, Sonic did go through an identity crisis for a while, which I'm not even sure is over, but he really does have some standout games. And one game that I really seem to enjoy is Sonic Unleashed. But that's going to be saved for a higher spot on this list, so for now I'm going to cover Sonic Adventure.
Ah, shit, I can hear the fanboy screaming already. Well, before you proceed to murder me in my sleep, let me explain.
Sonic Adventure certainly is a good game, but I do believe I went in expecting too much. You see, I didn't actually play this until I was about 11, and I had only heard amazing things about it. I'd heard that it was the best Sonic game ever, and that there were almost no flaws to be found inside. Well, that's certainly not true. Sonic Adventure actually has one of the biggest problems that I found in Sonic 06. That's the glitches. Oh, and terrifying voice acting. I still can't stand that. And I don't even need to mention the abomination of mankind that is Big the Cat. Oh yeah, I know where Froggy is. He's at the end of my double barrel. Here, take a real close look. But I'm focusing too much on the negatives. After all, this is a game that I consider good enough to include on my favorites. So, what are some of the appealing qualities? Well, that mostly comes in the gameplay department and level design. Yeah, at this point in time, Sonic hadn't really found his footing in terms of storytelling. I personally found the Tale of Chaos to be incredibly boring and actually started focusing more on the Chao storyline. That one at least let me take care of little adorable creatures.
But that's not to say this game is lacking in all areas, because as I said, the gameplay is super fun.
There are actually multiple people that you can play as, all with their unique styles and different ways of approaching situations. And actually the game lucked out, because there are only two that I hate with a passion. That would be Big the...
You say one more word about him and I will blow your fucking head off!
And Amy Roses, respectively. Now, the reason the game lucked out in that regard is because in most Sonic games, there are more than two things that make me want to stick sharp things in my eyes. So, there's that, I guess. But everyone else's storylines are super cool. Let's start out with the blue blur himself, Sonic. Sonic's gameplay has you running around at turbo speed and leaving your enemies in the dust. The only real conceivable problem with this is the fact that since you're moving so fast, this is the most likely to glitch up. But then you get to laugh, so it's a win-win for everyone. Tails' gameplay is nearly identical to Sonic's, except for the fact that you actually have to race Sonic to the end. Yeah, fastest thing alive, my ass.
And then of course there's Gamers where you just have to shoot everything with a bang 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 boom! Ow!
Now believe it or not, I actually consider Knuckles' style to be the most enjoyable, just due to the diversity. But don't worry, this followed up by Gamma. I just find him to be a bit overrated. Knuckles' story has you flying around with extreme knuckle power and searching for pieces of the Master Emerald. I like it the most because of how much it promotes exploration and, well, fun.
I still do think Sonic Adventure is way overrated, but that won't stop me from enjoying it. Just make sure not to bring that up to Mr. Phelps here. He won't take too kindly to that. Just saying.
Oh, nostalgia. Oh, life!
Now, believe it or not, this was one of the first games I ever played. And I remember it being awesome. With the gameplay and the music and the fucking Tim Allen. Everything was awesome about it in my eyes. And I went back and played it a little while ago. And guess what? It still holds up.
But it's not nearly as good as any of the other games on this list, thus why it's so low. But I will be goddamned if anyone tries to insult it. Now, I actually had the PC version of the game, and thus it ran quite well. But I'm not one for that PC Master Race crap, so I won't bore you. This game follows Buzz's adventures through the various locations found throughout the movie, like Andy's house, the store, that crazy guy's building, and many more. It also used full video clips from the movie, and I have to say, for how relatively early this game came out, these look really good. But I think the best part of this game, hands down, was the level design. Each level is structured like something out of Banjo-Kazooie. There are multiple missions in each stage, one of them involving a boss. And I gotta admit, these bosses could actually be pretty damn hard. I specifically remember that my father and I got super close to the end of the game. We were at the Zurg boss fight, but could never get past him.
It's not like we didn't try. We looked up several walkthroughs and videos on the early stages of YouTube to no avail. That's what I get for using console walkthroughs.
Actually, that's another one of the upsides of this game. No matter what type of console it was ported to, it still came out really well. All versions, N64, PC, and PS1, were all really superb games that took advantage of the capabilities and pushed the limits of what it could handle. It really was an impressive game. The only downside I ever actually found with this game is the fact that you only ever got to play as Buzz, and not any of the other trademark characters. However, with a name like Buzz Lightyear to the rescue, I'm not exactly sure what I was expecting. Damn it, 4-year-old me, why were you such a jackass? This game also actually had some really fleshed out areas. Every single level had multiple pathways that you could take that would take you to different places. And that's really cool. I've always wanted to play inside this universe.
Thank you, whichever company made this game. And damn my incompetence for not knowing it.
I'll always have fond memories of this game. Even though there are several flaws, I don't ever let it get to me. There are several ways to play through this game, and I can easily see myself playing through it again in the future. Just don't play the SNES version. That one's not too good. Naughty Dog has cemented themselves over the years as a company who's unwilling to make a bad and unsuccessful franchise. No matter what genre they try to tackle, it always seems to come out well. Well, that's kind of a loose term considering they've only ever made platformers. Well, there was that one awesome exception, but we'll get to that another time. But just because the franchises themselves have been great doesn't mean there haven't been some that weren't subpar. Such as Jak and Daxter 1, for example.
I just can't stray away from controversy, can I? Ah, you know what they say. If you can't beat them, join them.
Naughty Dog had just lost the rights to Crash Bandicoot, who up to that point had been their mascot, their total cash cow. The one thing that was keeping the company afloat. And I don't know who the genius was who came up with Jak and Daxter, but that man deserves all the monies. And the sex. Both. And at the time, Jak and Daxter, the precursor legacy, was one of the finest games available. But now, since both of its sequels are out, I can't help but compare it to that. And when you do that, the quality's lowered drastically.
And I know that that's not fair, but I played Jak 2 and 3 before the first one, so my opinion is fucked!
But does that mean this is a bad game? Oh, hell no! As it stands, Jak and Daxter is one of the finest games that I've ever played, but it is a bit formulaic. What I mean by that is that you repeat the same basic steps throughout to beat it. Complete a list of objectives, right to the next area, and get your new objectives. Rinse and repeat. What does keep this game going, however, is both the standout gameplay and story, which I won't spoil because it's just too good. However, I will say that what started out as a simple quest to try and change your best friend back into a human becomes an ancient legend reborn as you unravel the mystery of the precursors. Like I said, it's just too godly. Get it? Gods? Never mind. However, I will touch upon the quite enjoyable gameplay. Now, Naughty Dog laid down the same basic types of movement and attacking from Crash Bandicoot, but changed it up in just the right places to make it all work out. Jak is slower than Crash, but takes full advantage of his attacks using Daxter as a weapon. And this is before Jak became that total badass that everyone knows and loves. This is when Jak was just a mute kid who happened to get mixed up in the wrong type of business. And you know what? It led to a damn good trilogy of games. Jak and Daxter HD Collection, now available from PlayStation 3 and local GameStop. Get on your phones and call us now! Here's a mega segment!
And here's an awful pun!
But just like the previous segment, Mega Man had a just okay start. The original Mega Man was so revolutionary that it's almost ridiculous, though. That's an undeniable fact. The idea of murdering your enemies to collect their abilities and then using said abilities on other enemies is pure gold. No wonder it's been used so many times. But admittedly, this game had some questionable design choices. The enemy placement could oftentimes be designed to screw you over, the levels are just mismatched together in some places, and to be honest, some of the original Robot Masters were pretty weird. But fuck that, because holy damn, this game is awesome!
Oh, Mega Man, I love you so much. And I love the franchise too. There are just so many ways to expand on it based on what Robot Master is present in that current game. But I'm not Adam, so I won't expand on this entire thing.
That may be a bit biased. Hell, it's really biased. But do you really expect me to say anything else? It's Mega Man! You know, the guy who's been going seriously downhill in previous years? Yeah, him. But let's remember a time from 3 decades ago when Mega Man had just come out. This was a technical marvel, and it still even holds up today. Mega Man had so many different elements that came together to create something truly beautiful. And surprisingly, even though it was the first in a series, the range of Robot Masters is actually rather creative and ingenious. My favorite has got to be Cutman. He's just so damn silly. The platforming elements in this game are also really well made and designed to put what you've learned from other games to the test. And that's actually one of the biggest reasons I love this game. It expects you to be knowledgeable in basic platforming skills before you can actually complete it.
And this game has flaws, probably more than games lower on the list, but I put it above it for one reason. It's Mega Man, and thus it's awesome.
But for now, let's just leave on this. Mega Man is fun. It's definitely creative, it's fun, and you know, I think there was a point somewhere in here. Kinda got lost in the whole thing, I guess. What are you gonna do? I don't know, buy some eggs? I think I lost my train of thought.
Mega Man is one of the most creative concepts ever, and trust me, you will get its time to shine out in higher places in this list.
Remember how earlier I said that I hate games that expect way too much from you? Well, that's not always true. So yeah, I consider Ninja Gaiden one of the most frustrating and difficult games ever to be created to be good. Better, in fact, than Ghosts and Goblins. But why exactly is that? Ninja Gaiden is way more difficult and has the whole bullshit with sending you back to the first level of the last world. So, why?
Well, honestly, I think it's because of how it's implemented. In Ghosts and Goblins, it sent you to the pits of hell and back in the first level alone. But here, it kind of eases you into it.
What I mean by that is that the first level, instead of being a monument designed to kick your ass, is a tutorial of sorts that serves to teach you the basics of the game. And then, over time, it slowly delves into the horrible difficulty later on in the game. So, because it's more balanced, I just enjoy it more. But that's not the only reason I enjoy it. Oh no, this game has many really interesting attributes that make it not only a joy to play through, but gives it massive replay value. The first of these are the controls, and holy hell, for an NES game, this is impressive. The movement is so fluent and not choppy at all, which is really good considering how overwhelming some of the later levels can be. Without the really good movement, I don't think I would have been able to even bear this game. Another great aspect of it is the music. I know I really haven't brought that up any of these, but that's because before this there wasn't anything really special. But this game's soundtrack has so many standouts it's almost ridiculous. My favorites are the first world, fourth world, and sixth world. The only downside to the sixth is that it seems to be the orchestra of your death.
But you know what's really weird about hack and slash games like this? The story is really damn good!
Believe it or not, this was one of the first games ever made that included cutscenes, as well as a very in-depth story. It all centers around Ryu Hayabusa as he's trying to solve the mystery of his father's murder. It may seem very bland at first, but it actually gets really intriguing when it starts to include possessed statues and shit like that.
Look, I haven't played it in a while, okay?
But by and far, the best part of this game is the immensely satisfying combat. Not just for an NES game, by any game standards, this combat is amazing. It's very different from its arcade counterpart, but I honestly think that it benefited greatly from choosing this style of gameplay. It just came out better in the end.
Well, not being one of my favorite platformers, hell, it barely broke the top 100, Ninja Gaiden is still one of my favorite games, and I can't wait to play through it again in the future.
Man, difficult games just seem to be a running theme here. The Lion King is one of the most frustrating games I've ever played. There are multiple parts in it that seem like they were designed poorly, and the music seems to be a theme of mocking you. I fucking can't wait to be
King. But this game is like a work of art. You need to play through it a couple times just to actually get it. And once I got past that ostrich, I actually found a really enjoyable game.
After the ill-fated second level is completed, this game actually starts to take a really good turn. It follows the events of the movie quite well and starts changing the gameplay up as you get farther and farther into the game. I bet that half of you didn't even know that Simba becomes an adult later in the game. I know I didn't. There are also various minigames thrown throughout the entire thing that spice up the whole package quite a bit. And even though I said that the music is mocking you, I have to admit this game has a very impressive score. It's pretty much all composed of remixes of tracks from the movies. And if you didn't know, which I'm assuming is all of you since I never talk about Disney, Lion King happens to have my favorite soundtrack from pretty much any Disney movie. There's also the big fact that the berry code serves like a very helpful Konami code. Depending on where on the option screen you decide to enter it, you will get different results. Want a ton of lives but still want health? Enter it on the sound effects menu. Want to be invincible but still get hurt by certain things? Enter it on the difficulty menu.
And actually, that's one of the most appealing aspects of this game. The more you look into the nitpicky aspects you might have hated at first, the more you start to find ingenious ones implemented, and it really just blows your mind that you could have missed something like this. I have to bring up that art comparison again. It's just perfectly suited for this.
But this game is hard, and I'm saying balls to the wall, not using the Contra code and Super C hard. And yeah, the code helps a little, but there are still multiple things that can and will murder you in cold blood. Of course, there's the water, but that one's pretty obvious. I mean, it's coded to make you die as soon as you hit it, so I can't really complain about that one. That doesn't explain the bosses. Yes, some of the bosses can still attack you and hurt you even with the invincibility code entered. And I'm not talking about the final boss or anything. I'm talking about some of the earliest bosses in the game, like the hyenas, and they're not really that plot-driven either.
But there is some masochistic part of me that keeps me from hating this game. Sure, there are a lot of hateable aspects, but I just can't. Call it nostalgic blandness if you want. Hell, it's probably what it is, but that won't change a damn thing.
It also might just be plain and simple fact that I love the Lion King franchise as a whole. I've watched it since I was a little kid, and so yeah, it's definitely a nostalgic blindness at this point. I don't care. Do yourself a favor. If you haven't played this game, I urge you to do so. It's a blast, or a roar.
God, I'm like the king of bad puns.
Let's go back to 1985 with the release of the Nintendo Entertainment System. 2 years prior, the video game industry had crashed with the release of E.T. for the Atari 2600. No company was brave enough to venture back into the lion's den except for Nintendo. They realized someone had to do it, so they took a stand. They then realized that they would need several launch titles so that their new console would have a reason to exist. This is when they went to one of the most brilliant men on the face of this earth, Shigeru Miyamoto. They asked him to be the lead developer in creating several launch titles, and he graciously agreed. But after a while, his focus shifted to one game in particular. One game that he poured his heart, soul, and tears into. One platformer that would change the history of video games forever. Which game am I talking about?
You can't be serious.
Super Mario Bros. Was pretty much the original platformer. The game that set the standard for all platformers in the future. And hot damn is it good! This game brought so many things to the table that it's almost goddamn ridiculous. So many things that seem so basic when you first play through it can become things that you shake your head in awe when you think about them later. But before we get into the godlike aspects of this game, let's touch upon the basic formula that made it not only so popular, but also so addictive. Well, the basic formula is as follows. You are a little man that's out to save his girlfriend from a giant turtle. A turtle who, by the way, has many different incarnations and worlds that you have to get through before actually getting to fight him.
But that's really what's so intriguing about Super Mario Bros. You don't have to play through it like that. Hell, using the warp zone, you can go through the entire game without actually completing an entire world. But that's less satisfying. In fact, exploration is one of its greatest aspects.
This game was made in the 80s, and it still stands out as one of the most advanced games ever created. I mean, sure, the graphics can get a little bland after a while, and the Hammer Bros placements will sometimes make you want to stick sharp things in your eyes, but there are multiple ways around everything in this game. The creative game design was used in multiple Mario games after this, but I do believe that one of the best examples of it was found here. You can play through all 8 worlds if you want, but you can also take all the warp zones and just play through the final world. You can jump on the Hammer Bros at the right moment, or totally avoid it altogether and just run right underneath them. Just little things like that really put a nice candle on the cake.
But I think my favorite part of the game is just how much they tried. This was a launch title, and yet it pushed the console to the limits and back. And I can safely say it's a wonderful way to conclude part 1 of my list.
Hey guys, thanks for watching my video. That was just part 1 of a 10-part series because, you know, it's a fucking top 100. So, if you would like to see the other parts of it, click the Countdowns playlist, and you can see the rest if they're out yet. But if this is when the first one comes out, this is all irrelevant to you. So, yeah.